I think there might be something to the Stephanie White to the Fever stuff. Not only did she used to play for the team and coach the team, but she's had some nice things to say about the team since becoming the Connecticut Sun head coach. And let's just say the games between the Sun and the Fever were a bit contentious. So it's not as if some coaches wouldn't be bitter about it, but clearly with Stephanie White, there has been some positivity. Now, some of this goes back before then, and before any of those games, including an interview she did with Howard Megdal, who is my guy. Howard and I had some great chats this season on the Locked On Women's Basketball show, but I think this was from the summer
of it. But to me, even bigger, like you said, there's part of this overall larger moment. And, I guess I wonder how gratifying it is as a lifelong acolyte of Lynn Dunn to see the part that the Indiana Fever are playing too in that. I know, obviously, when you guys want, play Indiana, you want to beat them when it comes out there, but just, to know, given your history with that franchise and your history with Lynn specifically, how much pleasure you get out of seeing that happen, specifically in Indiana too.
I do. I mean, certainly in Indiana, it's my home state. And seeing the fans back in the building, for the Fever is important. It's gratifying, certainly, because Indiana is the basketball state, and I'm happy that the organization is sort of revitalized. Obviously proud of Lynn and what she's done, and Tamika and what she did to help, build it to where it is, certainly. And now this next generation of players taking it over. But even on the greater scale, the league in general, I mean, I've been a part of this league for 25 years as a player and a coach, and to see, where we were from the infancy, where we had great fan support, to, then kind of hitting a little bit of a lull, and where we are finally connecting the college fan to the WNBA. We have star power. We have engagement on social media platforms in ways that we haven't had before. And all that builds connection with our fans. And when we have connection with our fans, when we have a vested interest, and certainly, I feel like during the pandemic, it helped because people were at home. Oftentimes that's what we struggled with in the summertime. People aren't at home. They're out, they're on vacation. They're doing all of these things, right? And so awareness of WNBA and WNBA games wasn't there. The pandemic happens, they're at home. They don't have anything to do except for watch. And again, we get you one time and you're going to be invested. I think that started some momentum, and now we're at the perfect storm, so to speak. So to see where we were and where we are now, and selling out NBA arenas, the fan engagement, the players taking ownership of it. The game is as good as it's ever been. The players are as good as they've ever been. That is incredibly exciting and gratifying.
So make sure you check out the Locked On Women's Basketball podcast. Again, I think that was from August. But you heard Stephanie White, not only does she have a connection to the franchise, she has a connection to the state. So there's that, right? And that wasn't the only comments that she made. She also said this at one point during the season. I think, obviously in the playoffs, as you could see from the banner.
The last time Indiana was in the playoffs was in 2016. You were coach. What's it like just to see that the growth of this franchise right now, and how it's been able to grow, not only on the court, but just off the court?
Yeah, it's exciting. Certainly I was born and raised in Indiana, and so have a lot of pride in Indiana basketball, and a lot of pride in the Fever organization, being a player and a coach there. And it's exciting what's happening with the organization and where they are. I mean, most organizations have their ups and downs, certainly. But I'm proud of the growth of the Indiana Fever. Excited, about the future of the Indiana Fever. And unfortunately, we're the ones that have to play them in the first round. But at the same time, there's always a special place in my heart for that organization.
So there you have it. Again, complimentary of the Indiana Fever and the state of Indiana. And then I showed you this before, the last time I talked about Stephanie White, but she was also in Caitlin Clark's congratulatory video for breaking the all-time scoring record at Iowa. So I don't know why she was approached specifically for that, but here she was.
Stephanie White here, Congratulations on breaking the scoring record. What an accomplishment, on top of many other incredible accomplishments. Best of luck to you on the rest of your journey and continued success.
So none of that means that Stephanie White is going to be the Indiana Fever head coach, right? But when you take that report from the Chicago Sun-Times that she was talking to the Sun, the Sky, and the Fever, which is like, what, the Fever? Which was the first time I thought Christy Sides might be shown the door. And then you go back and you hear what she said about Clark, what she said about the Fever, and then, of course, the connection she has to the organization and to the state of Indiana. It certainly doesn't argue against the possibility that she could wind up as the next head coach of the Indiana Fever. You know, all things being equal, that's got to be the best job in the sport, right? And with the Connecticut Sun, a lot of their top players are free agents. It's going to be hard to keep the core of that roster together. And Stephanie White, you know, does have a good coaching pedigree. She was the coach of the year in 2023. You know, she has a winning record overall in her coaching career. So you see what she's been able to do. And it's enticing. It's enticing. She's 92-56 as a coach, I believe. Made it to the NBA Finals with the Fever in 2015. Obviously, won around each year the last 2 years with the Connecticut Sun. So there's a track record of success for her as a head coach. There's a connection to the team as a player and a coach. There's a connection to the state as that's where she was. And there is the fact that, you know, obviously she doesn't have any built up animosity toward Caitlin Clark. She congratulated her on winning. And then you combine that with the Chicago Sun-Times report, and there's smoke there. Let's just put it that way. Does that mean there's fire? Not necessarily. But you know what the saying is. And I think we'll see all this pretty soon when the new GM takes over, when new management takes over for the Indiana Fever. But that's just stuff to put in your pocket and you know, back pocket and tuck away to think about. Things that make you go, And I'm certainly at least thinking of the possibility that Stephanie White could be on the sidelines for the Fever next season.